Welcome, and good Wednesday evening, folks. Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with you. Thanks so much for joining us here on 13 News Now Plus for today's edition of Hurricane Hub Live. Tonight on HHL, we're going to be talking about Flossie out in the Eastern Pacific that turned major. No longer a major hurricane, but it's the second major hurricane so far this season in the basin. And closer to home in the Atlantic, could we be talking about some close-in development? And that means right along our seaboard, we could be looking at the third named storm, which would be, I got to think about that. I kind of forgot the name there. We'll look at it on the list here in just a second. For some reason, I just had a little bit of a brain blip there and forgot what the third name is. All right, tropical satellite outside right now. Not much going on across the majority of the basin. Okay, we do have a few blips of some tropical waves moving along at a very low latitude along the intertropical convergence zone, but very much void of any activity a little bit farther to the north, and there's a big reason for that. We've been talking about this. It's the Saharan dust, okay, and it's just a mid-level dry patch of dry, dusty air, pretty much picked up from the Saharan desert from some thunderstorms just south of there, blowing that aloft, and it's getting picked up by trade winds and pushed off towards the west. And this is a big disruptor, or really just inhibitor, really, of any storm development in the Atlantic basin. This time of year, it's not uncommon. Now, here's the close-in development I'm talking about. Now the focus is turned to off the southeast coast. Yesterday, it was more like the northeast Gulf over Florida and then parts of the southwest Atlantic. Now it looks to be mainly focused on the southeast coastline, just off the coast there. Now, the Gulf current is here, so that's something to take into account. Even though overall the ocean waters, this part of the Atlantic, are warm, we've got an influx of warm waters coming in from the south thanks to the Gulf Stream. So that could be a contributing factor to the potential of some development here. Now, odds right now are not overwhelmingly high. We're at 40%. That's moderately high, and there's been no change over the last 24 hours. Last night when we joined you, they just boosted this to 40%, putting it in the orange of a moderate chance over the next 7 days. It's also not been tagged as an invest just yet, because the area of development, the wave, isn't even there yet. What we're looking at here is just a big area of disturbed weather. Really, that's over the northeast Gulf, over the Florida Peninsula, and some showers and squalls now developing over the south, off the southeast coastline. It's very disorganized here, but it will contribute to a very unsettled stretch of weather, unfortunately, stretching right through the upcoming 4th of July holiday weekend. So, of course, a lot of folks down in Florida want to go to the beach. Not looking like the best beach weather over the next several days, really up until early next week. We're looking at a lot of squalls and eventually possibility of some organizing rain. Now, models here are kind of back and forth. What I'm showing you here is the European model solution for rainfall straight through the next 7 days. And right up through Tuesday night, showing the majority of the rain coming in through Florida and then along the coast. Now, this is because, and I'll show you this in just a minute, European seems to be most bullish on there being some development here off the southeast coastline, and then it driving to the north and spreading rain into eastern North Carolina and perhaps into southeastern Virginia as we get into early next week. So there could be potentially increasing rain odds there. I want to show you a new product that we haven't visited yet so far this season. And this is the European model showing relative vorticity or spin in the atmosphere. And areas that we're looking for is going to be consolidated circular areas of either the yellows or even some reds there. When they start to be circular, that gives us an indication that we're starting to get a closed off center of circulation, organization, and we're kind of focusing that spin into a confined area, which would be an indicator of a system developing. So we'll start things off, Wednesday, today, going right on through the next couple of days. And I'm going to stop it here on Friday. We've got a really kind of stretched out area of relative vorticity or atmospheric spin sitting off the southeast coastline. This is interesting here because the Gulf Stream is pretty much in this general area. So it's sitting, we've got energy sitting over a relatively favorable environment at this point in time by Friday morning. Still no development yet, but as we get into the weekend, Saturday night and Sunday, notice we see the consolidation. More spin is evident here on the European model, showing a possibility of a system getting going and organizing, maybe a tropical depression, maybe a low-end tropical storm. Chantal, just remembered it, Chantal. possibly developing here just off the South Carolina coastline, pretty much due southeast of Charleston, according to the European. Now, we'll tell you the GFS model. The American model, not so much. This shows the energy very much spread out and interacting with the cold front that's coming in from the north and west. And the European has that front. It's well off to the north and west at this time, but plenty of opportunity here for it to develop, according to the European. And then watch after we get some development going here. It'll remain organizing as it's over open water, and then it moves inland over eastern North Carolina, potentially by Sunday night, and then maybe even into southeastern Virginia, this area of spin and energy, which will likely be associated with increasing rain odds as well, moves over southeastern Virginia, northeastern North Carolina, the Outer Banks, by Monday night of next week. Is this set in stone? No. But we've seen this kind of thing happen before, and this part of the basin is favored in early July to foster some development for fronts that are dipping down the north. By the way, what's going to be kind of kicking off the development here is the front that moved through Virginia today. As that dips to the south, that's going to add that spin, additional spin to the atmosphere that's going to get this going and possibly building off to the north. So that's how the European model sees things. So up next, as I mentioned, Chantal. Took a little while to come back to the mind, though. We had Andrea, and of course, we had Barry, both short-lived, weak tropical storms so far this season. Andrea was in the subtropics of the Atlantic, and then Barry was in the Gulf of Mexico and made landfall in Mexico this past weekend. So Chantal will be up next. All right, in terms of our third named storm, looking back at climatology, last 30 hurricane seasons and around the date that we usually see the third named storm, doesn't usually happen until August. Now, that hasn't really happened in a long time. Okay, last season, Chris, which was our third named storm, developed on June the 30th. And if we see Chantal over the next 7 days or so, we'd be obviously well ahead of the August 3rd normal time for the third named storm. And we don't get the fourth until August 15th. So this is a little bit off in terms of climatology, and we've been just running ahead of schedule for the past several seasons. But aside from the possibility of seeing Chantal develop over the next 7 days in the Atlantic Basin, everything else remains quiet, and I don't see anything developing in at least the next 7 days in the main development region or anywhere else. Let's jump over to the Eastern Pacific now, and here's Flossie. We've been watching this system for a while. This is a 36-hour loop of infrared satellite imagery. I like using this filter because it depicts the cloud top heights, colder cloud tops, stronger convection, thunderstorm activity, stronger storm. And I'll let it loop one more time here. And as we go back to the first couple frames of the 36-hour loop, you'll see a lot of whites and black shading indicating that there's very cold cloud tops. And this is when Flossie was on an intensification trend. Now we're seeing a de-intensification or weakening trend here as it's moving off to the north and west. And as I'll show you in a minute, there's a big obvious reason why that's occurring. This is the sweet spot that it's been in for the past day or so, and that did push it up to a Category 3 status, making it the second major hurricane of the season. And the previous was Eric, which was the storm that came right before Flossie about 2 weeks ago. Right now, winds are sitting at 100 miles per hour, moving to the northwest at 9, and that does put it at a Category 2, mid-range Category 2 hurricane. You see here on the Saffir-Simpson scale, 96 to 110 considered a Category 2 hurricane. It did peak as a Category 3 with around 115 mile per hour winds. It is on that weakening trend down to a tropical storm by tomorrow afternoon, probably before that, honestly, and then a remnant low and tropical depression as we get into Friday and the upcoming weekend as it stays safely offshore. Now, why is it going to be weakening? Well, sea surface temperatures that are supposed to pop up here. As we move it farther to the north and west, it'll be encountering colder sea surface temperatures, colder waters. And that is going to really limit the latent heat transfer, the energy that's able to be absorbed from the ocean surface. So as it's moving to the north and west, it's out of its fuel source. It's almost as if it's moving over land. It's not getting any more energy from the ocean. Now, right behind it, it just continues its trend of activity, high activity in the Eastern Pacific. We've got another area watching here that actually they just increased the odds now. We're up to 60% odds, 60 to 70% odds in the next 7 days of development in this general area again, which has been a very much sweet spot for development here, fostering two major hurricanes, Eric and Flossie. We'll see what this one does. The next name on the list for the Eastern Pacific is going to be Gil. coming up on the 7th named storm already. So we could be at 3 in the Atlantic, but 7 in the Eastern Pacific. So very, very interesting to see how that plays out. Now, we do have sea surface temperature anomalies. This is the difference from normal, either colder or warmer than normal. We're seeing blips of blue here. Those are sea surface temperatures that are coming in below normal for this time of the year. And the yellows and oranges are a little bit warmer than this time of year. Now, when you get a lot of activity over the same part of the ocean, upwelling tends to kind of pull out some of that heat energy and lower sea surface temperatures. We're starting to see some of this, what we call sea surface temperature scarring from our past storms here in this general area. And it has brought in some slightly below normal temperatures for sea surface temperature. Doesn't mean it's below where it should be to facilitate tropical growth. It just means that they're running a little bit cooler than this time normally in the Eastern Pacific. Now, since we've had a complete lack of any storms in the Atlantic, aside from Andrea and Barry, but we're just too weak to really pull out a lot of energy from the ocean, we don't have any of that. So you notice a lot of yellow and a lot of oranges, especially in the subtropics, indicating sea surface temperatures are running above normal. And that has been a trend we have seen for the last, 10 hurricane seasons. It's been a trend, and that looks to continue this time around, especially this main development region here, well above normal for this time of the year by a degree or two. So we'll see how that fosters development as we get deeper into the hurricane season. That's the latest on today's update, folks. If you have any questions, you could always find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. We'll be back here tomorrow night on 13 News Now Plus at 8 p.m. for another edition of Hurricane Hub Live. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.